It's the only wrestling podcast on earth that may create a fight between the Americans and Canadians by the end of the show. You'll get the joke a little bit later. First of all, we have one two-time former MLB All-Star, a comeback player of the year, salt of the earth, my favorite high school head coach ever, Dimitri Young.
And this is the T-shirt of choice today, as seen on TV. Not HD TV, because I played during the pre-HD era.
And Fight Network, so thank you. We have one former two-time X Division champion, the man behind the man at Impact Wrestling, the creator of the Canadian Destroyer, my best friend and yours, Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
And we have one man that can carry a tune and can carry a podcast. He's been rocking all over the world since, the 90s? One of the most influential punk bands on earth. Josh, take notes. It's Lars Fredrickson from Rancid.
Two things. I can't carry a note across the street, and that's my favorite aisle at Walgreens, Dimitri, as seen on TV.
Boys and girls, children all around the world, we have a guest that we've been badgering PD to get on for the last 6 months. Literally every week. When are you going to get Josh Alexander? When are you going to get Josh Alexander? We want to talk to Josh Alexander. PD finally pulled the trigger. Tonight, here on the Wrestling Perspective, it's Josh Alexander.
What's up, guys? I'm happy to make this happen after 6 months, apparently. It was quite the hype up for everybody, though.
Short now.
Like the Flavor Flav of the podcast, man. Those intros were sick.
Oh,
Flavor Flav is actually better looking.
Oh, sucker MCs better watch out. Listen, Josh, I'm going to start this podcast off with an apology to you, because on many podcasts, and before I actually knew your story, Pete and I, or we would fantasy book, or we would talk about what would take this guy to the next level. And one of the things I would always say about you is, I love Josh Alexander, one of my favorite wrestlers, but he needs to lose the headgear. To me, it reminds me of Rick Steiner. Hang on, I'm apologizing, D. I'm apologizing. Let me get to it. I put the Rick Steiner comparison on you, and I'm like, in order to take the next step, he has to lose it. Then just recently, I heard an interview where you gave the background on why you were, how it came about, and which I hope you will regurgitate on this podcast. But I have to say, after hearing that story, I'm sorry. You need to keep that headgear. That is something that's unique to you. And after hearing that story, I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
So let's hear the story.
Headgear, I think it was if I'm a good storyteller for the Canadian. In 2013, sorry, I started wrestling in 2005, and until 2013, I was pretty much the hot prospect, blonde-haired. People compared me to like Jack Swagger, but I was like, for Ontario indie fame, I was like the guy. But I couldn't break through and, get any notoriety outside of here. So I started getting a few bookings in the States, which is where you really get noticed. And I always had like a weird cauliflower thing. I'd always dream my ear, but it was never too serious. In this big tournament for this independent promotion in Ohio, I got kicked in the ear, and instantly my ear swelled up to like the size of this headphone. Ooh. And I remember Dolph Ziggler was actually there with his mom watching the show, because he like lives in Cleveland when he's off the road. So if he could come to indie shows, he would come check it out. And I looked over and I grabbed my ear, and he was like going, oh, like this, like he was like selling it, because he's a wrestler. He knows what cauliflower ear is all about. I went and got it drained in America. They wrapped my head up. I wrestled again the next day, 2 matches, which was foolish, because by the time I got back to Canada on the 5-hour trip, my ear had now swelled even greater, to the point where it was starting to tear. And I went to the hospital, waited a solid 8 hours in Canadian healthcare system to sit on the edge of gurney, where I had nothing but the bar to squeeze with my hand. They didn't put any freezing in my ear, and they cut my ear all the way around the lobe and peeled it down, and then scraped out all the scar tissue. Yeah, it's a little graphic. But then they pinned it back, sewed it up, and they pinned my my head, they wrapped it like super tight. And they said, don't take this off for at least 10 days and don't do any activity with your ear, like anything that can rub or touch it for, I think it was like 3 months. And I was like, 3 months? I have an indie booking in 2 weeks. Like this can't happen. I gotta go to Ottawa and wrestle for, some independent promotion. So I was sitting at home and I just had to order headgear just randomly. I paid like $40 shipping just to get it to my house in time. And I went to this independent promotion called C4 Wrestling out in Ottawa, and I wore it for the first time. And I came out and I was hesitant. I was nervous because, I thought Rick Steiner, I thought I would look lame as shit, like basically. Sorry if I can't swear on this. Okay. Yeah. And I remember walking out and people were like chanting Princess Leia or like nice headphones. People were barking at me, but by the end of the match, like nobody was like doubting anything. And I came to the back and all the boys were like, yeah, that looks badass. And it really, it didn't catch on right away, but like I kept wearing for 3 months at all these indie dates I had. And by the time I was done, like it became this identity that I had never had before that. Like indie wrestlers, that thing that had to get me to that next level was this identity that made people remember me. And before, just being like, a half decent looking, half decent in shape, blonde kid that can wrestle didn't really get me any notoriety. But all of a sudden I put on this headgear and I had this different identity. I had this different look that would set me apart from everybody else. And it was the best accident that ever happened to me, really.
Well, I've heard the story before and I love this story, and I do back you up all the time with the headgear. It's like, you're going to make people forget that Rick Steiner wore headgear by the time you're done with your wrestling career. People will be like, oh yeah, Josh Alexander, I want to wear headgear because I want to be like him. And before I get to my question, one thing that I do really, really respect about you is that, being the producer at Impact, like I don't always have wrestling matches or whatever. And a lot of guys, like they're content, like, oh, I just got a promo today. Sweet, easy day, easy payday. But, I still get on TV. Awesome. Right. You get upset over stuff like that. I remember you're probably the only wrestler I know where I'm like, hey, what do you got today? And you're like, oh, I just have this promo. And you just want to wrestle. Even like when you're getting paid for the day off, like you get upset when you're like, hey, put me in a dark match, something. I just want to wrestle. Nobody has that work ethic like you do, like not now anyways. So, my question is, or not my question, but maybe you could just tell the story of, speaking of work ethic, you broke your neck back in like 2015 maybe, and you had to retire.
Yeah.
And stuff. So what happened there? Like with the breaking, still working through it, then you retired, then what made you come back?
Okay. So the headgear thing happened in 2013. Now we work up to 2015 and I was close to getting a contract, or so I thought. Petey, you actually saw the match in Detroit for Ring of Honor where like they just chanted headgear the entire time.
Yeah, Dennis was
I think
there
you were
too.
retired. You stopped by. Yeah, it ruined Kevin Steen's like retirement match at Ring of Honor because they were chanting "We want headgear" throughout him and like Steve Carino. Wow. And it's just like something that sticks out of my mind. Yeah, it was wild. It was a crazy night. But anyway, so like I was working Ring of Honor and they were talking about maybe signing myself and Ethan Page. We were the Monster Mafia at the time as a tag team. And they kept stringing us along, booking us all these matches, and we'd always deliver. So we thought we were close. In that match, I took a DDT from Kyle O'Reilly and just all of a sudden something felt a little off in my neck. I didn't think I was hurt, but like I knew I got rocked. 2 days later, I moved my neck a different way, and all of a sudden it just felt like somebody poured hot coffee down my arm. It was agonizing pain. I kept thinking like I pinched a nerve or something. I'm just trying to sleep like with my hand above my head. It took me like 7 or 8 weeks to get an MRI in Canada. And that whole time I'd been wrestling for Ring of Honor and other promotions as well, just not realizing that my arm was completely atrophying the entire time. And I remember I flew to California in September. I flew back after wrestling the Young Bucks in a cage match and had surgery the next day on my neck. And we canceled all my bookings for 5 weeks. And 6 weeks after neck surgery, neck fusion, C4, C5, I returned. And I kept wrestling, and I didn't tell anybody except Ethan Page that I had neck surgery because we thought we were so close to that contract. And I was like, maybe I can work around it. Like people call me tough. I think I'm just stupid sometimes. Like I just have this weird thing where like, it might be a combination of both. I just never wanted to let that slip away because I thought I was that close. And, you know, after returning 6 weeks after neck surgery, I wrestled for 7 or 8 months before I really had any issue. And I was in California at PWG, and I fell on my head again with Chris Sabin and Matt Seidel in a match. And I instantly, this time it was hot coffee. So I went back to the same surgeon. He scheduled an MRI. By the time he looked at it, he said, yeah, you broke the level above it. Like, what the hell were you doing? And I told him I was wrestling, and he was just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And he told me I had to retire. Like, you can't fuse so many levels in your neck. It's just too dangerous to even step foot in a ring at that point, he was saying. So I recently became a father. I decided to just retire and see if I could find something else. And the only issue was when I woke up from that second surgery in July of 2015, I had no neck brace on this time. From the first surgery, I knew what to expect. I woke up and I was like, I can move my head every direction. What's going on? I had a scar across my neck, so they went in, but I didn't know. And I had to wait for the surgeon. It was like 2 days. He finally comes in. He goes, yeah, it was just complications with the first surgery. We cleaned it up. We opened up some, pathways for the nerves that weren't properly done the first time. And we didn't have to fuse the second level. So like, if you rehab, you can totally wrestle again. And I was just like, first thing that went through my head is like, Terry Funk retired 4 times. And that's all you hear about is like wrestlers retire and it never sticks. And I'm like, people are going to think I took advantage of them, fans, wrestlers, all this stuff. And this is just like a ploy to make money. And like, I was just like, I can't return. People are just going to be pissed. And, it took like 6 months for me to get drunk with my best friend and tell him that whole story about how I could still wrestle. And he was just like, oh, you're coming back. You're completely miserable. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have to come back. Wrestling's all you're good at. And I was just like, well, thanks. So I rehabbed for 9 months, came back, and just, I say it in every interview I've ever done because it's especially true. Breaking my neck and having that surgery and having to retire was the best thing that ever happened in my career, because before that, like, I had that crazy I want to wrestle all the time thing, but I never had the drive outside of the wrestling ring, like the dieting and the work ethic in the gym, and it just rewired me to be like, I think I'm a complete animal now. Like, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning to go to the gym, and then go to the gym again in the afternoon. I'm on this crazy diet, it's the thing that motivated me to be better and make up for all the mistakes I made before that.
Well, I've been watching you since you first came to Impact Wrestling, and I mean, just like everybody talks about with the headgear, reminds you of Rick Steiner, and so you had I'm like, oh, look at this dude, but you had that serious look, and you was like ready to go, and I was like, this dude is like, if you're comparing Rick Steiner with the great amateur wrestling background and stuff that you had, and I was like, this dude got moves, and then you came together with Ethan Page and created the North, perhaps the best team ever in Impact history. And then he's off to AEW, and you're now X Division champion. Did you think during the time that you got here that all of this had happened and is eventually the Impact World Championship in your eyesight?
Answer your first question, no, I did not think any of this would happen, especially this fast. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. I was literally signing that contract. I've always loved TNA. I've always loved Impact. PD knows I'm a huge mark for like all the stuff that I grew up watching, because I was growing up watching him. But it was just yeah, he looks great for 45 or whatever he is. But
46. Right?
Honestly, however old you are, you're still like top 5 physique in the locker room at all times, which is impressive. So you should be proud.
Thanks.
Wait, take his shirt off and do the rest of the podcast shirtless.
No, let's go on. Answer the question, Josh.
Is this the thing that usually happens?
It's
no.
It has happened. It has happened, and I'm fucking game as fuck. So let's do this. I'll show you what 50 punk rock looks like.
Chris Sabin, the Chris Sabin episode, we all took our shirts off because Chris Sabin.
I wasn't there.
Oh, all right.
But we'll get back to the. Go ahead, Josh.
Like I was saying, I didn't know what to expect. I wanted to get myself on that next level to see what I was capable of. Cause like I've never wrestled in a TV product and all that stuff. It's a completely different animal. And, lo and behold, I show up and I'm given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And to me, like, if you give me an opportunity to put pressure on me, I'm usually always going to rise to the occasion or kill myself trying. And so far, I haven't dropped the ball, like they say. So, everything just kind of snowballed into what it is now. The tag team stuff was amazing. I am very proud of all that stuff. But now this single stuff is a whole new challenge. And I have almost 16 experience on the independents in singles action. So like, it's not like it's something foreign to me, but like now that, I'm given those opportunities, of course, it's X Division Championship now. And hopefully, Impact Championship comes along once, twice, 3 times, however many times I can do it.
Well, I saw you a few times with PWG, and that you kind of just answered my question a little bit about the tag team, because I'm a tag team guy. That's kind of really like my favorite kind of wrestling and whatever. But now I'm seeing you as a singles competitor. One of the things that we're seeing in wrestling now is that there's not just one big company anymore. There's a bunch. And so it's not like you're using an Impact or an ROH or New Japan or AEW as a stepping stone to get to the North, right? So where do you see yourself? Are you like one of those guys that had that visual, that dream to get to the WWE, or are you kind of content with where you are right now?
I never had that, like, I want to main event WrestleMania or anything like that. And I think it was just like, I never even thought I could be a wrestler. It wasn't until like 2002, 2003 when TNA came about that I saw guys like Loki and Samoa Joe and these different kind of body types that aren't Batista and Randy Orton, all these giants like that just made it unattainable in my mind beforehand. But like, I've never had the dream. I want to wrestle at a high level. All my heroes were guys like, Eddie Guerrero and Dynamite Kid, and I could go on naming names, but they were all the guys that were known for work rate and like made their name as making this like presented as a sport, presenting it as legit. So like, if I can do that, I want to do it on the biggest stage possible. Obviously, I want to, be able to support my family doing this at the same time. But you can do that at many companies, like you said. So it doesn't matter where I do it, as long as, I'm not sitting on the bench.
We live in a weird wrestling era, and we kind of touch on it sometimes in and out of interviews or when we talk about wrestling, on how the wrestling world is way different than the outside world. And you do it is. You do some things, you get some heat. You don't shake the right hand, or you shake it too hard, you get heat. I just saw a story where the Briscoe brothers had heat from, the Briscoe, because he didn't ask for permission to use the name Briscoe, which is all mind-blowing to me with the size of wrestling as it is then, now, and forever, whatever. For you, when you start donning the headgear, did you feel like maybe there might have been some Rick Steiner heat because you didn't ask him permission to take his gimmick or anything like that?
I literally, it never crossed my mind until this moment. I just figured Rick was long retired. I knew people tried it after him and failed, and many people have tried since I started in 2013. Like, it's popped up in NXT probably 3 or 4 times, and it usually washes away pretty fast. But luckily, it stuck with the 2 of us. But yeah, I never even thought about that.
So I want to move on to the X Division. Now you're X Division champ. I had the privilege of being the guy on the headset and producing that when you won the title. I was super proud. I mean, I already told you, I think you're a phenomenal worker when it comes to like your in-ring stuff and like how hard you want to work. So when you found out that you were going to be X Division champion, did you know ahead of time? I ask everybody this question when they win like, a big singles title. Cause I know my story and I've told it many times, but did you find out like the day of, or like, when did you find out you were going to be X Division champion?
Scott had called me maybe a week before the pay-per-view, and he was talking about something completely separate. It was like border travel something. And then randomly he goes, yes, we'll have you do this, and then you'll defend the belt at Under Siege. And he just like randomly said it, and then it was like, okay, bye. And he hangs up the phone. I'm like, what? Okay. But like in my head, I'm just like, he could have been fucking with me. So like, I'll believe it when I see it. So it wasn't until I got to the building and saw, my name was underlined or whatever.
All right. No, he does. That's how Scott tells you that you're winning. Like he's like he does it so matter of factly, like just in passing. Like, yeah. So, anyways, I'll see you later. Bring an extra bag for the belt. You're gonna win. All right, bye. That's
It was totally like he just slipped it. Yeah.
Dimitri?
So, yeah, I was gonna talk about your, who are the guys that you aspired to be like growing up? Because me myself being a baseball player, I like Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. And then, were you able to actually meet your idols, and how was it when you met them?
Met my idols. I don't think I have, because Stone Cold was really the thing that got me into wrestling. And then it was Sting. So I had both companies rocking back and forth with a favorite on each side. And through that, it was really just, I found the cruiserweights, and like Eddie Guerrero was my complete, like ultimate, like be all end all legend I look up to as an in-ring performer and stuff like that. And, it's like all those guys. I haven't met Jericho. He'd be probably the closest guy that's still going that I could really meet. I did meet Fit Finley though. And I would say he's definitely like up there for me. And he was like the coolest dude ever. Like he watched my match and all the stuff. He talked to me about it. I got to pick his brain a little bit. He just took time when he really didn't need to, which was the best part. So like, it's not always don't meet your heroes, like they say. I mean, I'm sure some of them could let you down, but mine that one time was pretty cool.
Well, what do you enjoy more, being the heel or being the baby face?
Ooh.
I like being a heel quite a bit, but the interesting part about
I'm sorry, it seems like with the headgear and everything, that's more of a heel thing. You know what I mean? In my opinion, because you can use it as a foreign object or whatever it is. But it's like what's in your psyche. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I like being a heel mainly just because like my wrestling style is super aggressive, and a lot of people in wrestling today aren't. So it like comes across more vicious and stuff like that, and it's much easier to like have matches, especially with X Division guys who are usually smaller than me. But the interesting part about my character on the indies, since I've pretty much had the headgear and all the way up to now in Impact, even when I was tagging with the North, like I'm as tweener as it gets. And like I ride this line of I don't really cheat, but I'm aggressive. So I let people make up their minds. And unless I, come out and be like, hey, this town sucks, I'm not really doing anything to be heelish. But yeah, I just like when the fans decide it is because of how aggressive I am. But yeah, I'm a tweener through and through.
I've got two questions, and I'm gonna kind of slip them in this, I guess, line of questioning, and I'll go with the first one, which is kind of the longer question here. And what are you going to do to put your mark on the X division? Each guy tries to elevate the belt to a certain level in their own way. Have you put thought into what you're going to do, how your persona, what you're going to do to grow with the belt, to either the belt make you or you make the belt?
It's a very easy answer for me. I've followed TNA and Impact all the way since its inception. I think the X Division title has had many ups and downs, but it started with that first, like, I want to say almost 8 years of being the untouchable championship in all of TNA or Impact. And I think it was just because of match quality. So if I had my, way about it, I'm going to make sure that I steal the show every single time I'm defending it. I think through doing that and establishing the X division as that untouchable division, if you like pro wrestling, I think it's going to, elevate the belt back to what it once was and elevate myself on the way.
And this isn't so much a question, but a discussion for all of us. I just want to throw this out there. Recently, you've had guys like Russo and Booker T say this whole alliance or the Forbidden Door thing with AEW is doing nothing for Impact. And I feel like they're kind of wrong. But as us sitting here as fans, I feel like it's something we should bring up. Seeing PD's backstage, you're the X Division champion, and if you really want to say you're technically the highest ranking champion on the roster because Omega is not technically on the roster. So let's put that aside. But for all of us sitting here right now with those comments that this isn't helping Impact, I believe that's BS bullshit right now. And I want to throw it. I'll start with Dimitri, and then we'll kind of work our way down, and then get back into the questions. Dimitri, I mean, I think it's helping Impact leaps and bounds. Not that it needs it that much.
It's putting eyeballs on the product, and when you look at the product and understand that you got some guys that can flat out wrestle here. We got guys that can actually compete with other wrestling federations and stuff. And part of that wall being down, and especially you, dude, you get down in the ring, man. It's like you really wrestle. And people that like wrestling, like wrestlers, forget the whole product and, you have wicked spooky shit going on. You got some authentic stuff that people can relate to. And for me, my question was more along the lines of, with all these factions, and this is in all different organizations. Right now, you're kind of a lone wolf. Are you going to find yourself eventually, joining sides, or are you going to find a way to join up with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky? Let me know what's going on, because this is exciting for me. I love the Forbidden Walls being ripped and burnt down and stuff.
As far as me going anywhere else or doing anything, I'm totally focused on being a singles competitor right now. I think the Walking Weapon moniker says it all. I'm just going to walk alone and do my own thing, and I think it's working out so far. I told myself and I told everybody else, if you ever see me tagging with anybody other than Page, it's because I got paid a lot of money or I'm miserable. So
hey, we tagged, bro.
Yeah, that was.
Are you miserable?
You don't know what
make a lot of money.
Yeah, you don't know what Scott paid me for that. So
Lars.
No, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Keep going.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now. So like I'm not looking at any factions or anything like that.
So are you basically posing, Dennis, about what they said? Do we agree with that or not?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think, Vince Russo had his time, you know what I mean? He did some good work. And Booker T obviously is someone that, I've always looked to and admired. But honestly, like, I think this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to Impact. You know what I mean? And to professional wrestling, because it's honestly, as a wrestling fan for 40 some odd years now, and watching it all kind of, sort of unfold, and we're getting to this finally, it made me choose a side. And I'm not just saying this because you two are here, but I'm rooting for Impact because to me, they're the underdog in all of this. But I think they have, I don't know, something more appealing about that, the style that you guys are doing there than AEW. AEW is a little bit more like the Wild West. You guys are a little bit more refined and focused. And I don't think it's like one of those places where people go somewhere else anymore. I think that those days are gone. And as a result of what's happening with this, because I see you as like kind of like an Anderson. Like I feel like if the Andersons were still going, you could fit into that. You have that aggressive style. You're very stoic. And then you bring that kind of thing into the X division, which is pretty unique because the X division, is always about a lot of movement. You know what I mean? As a wrestling fan, it's a lot of spots. It's a lot of this, a lot of jerking off. You bring it in there and you kind of, sort of keep it like focused. I don't mean jerking off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Whatever. Okay. You're a perv. But anyway. But I mean, that's the thing that I wanted to ask you is like, are you, knowing that we know this about the X division, that's kind of like a spot or can be at times, are you consciously going into those matches, like trying to bring it down and take your time a little bit? Because that's what it looks like that you're doing to me.
I'm just trying to establish my style. If that style slows down all these guys from what they're doing, then, I think that's just, it's not consciously on purpose, but it's going to happen. I personally don't like the crazy nonstop moves, dives every match. I think like those type of matches are very repetitive. And if there's one thing that I find that to challenge myself, I'll never do the same thing twice. And it's just because I want to be creative. Like that's the juice I get out of pro wrestling. So like every match should have a different story. There should be different like moves and stuff placed in different ways so that, you know, it makes sense that it's actually a fight. Like I'm not going to do the exact same step-by-step wrestling every single time. And I like that's what I want to establish with my style. And if that slows it down, it slows it down. I see all over Twitter and all this stuff, people say I'm not an X division guy because, you know, I'm 6'1" and 220 pounds or whatever. But I can move just as fast as all these guys. I can go toe to toe with them. I have every bit of as much fuel in the gas tank. It's just I have a different style, more mat based, more, you know, pro wrestling style.
So you're, even though you put yourself over there, you still are being modest. So I'm not going to give anything away, but I want to put a little preview out there of what to expect in the coming weeks on Impact. So, you know, you had a few matches at the TV tapings that I already, you know, pre-filmed, and they were freaking phenomenal. All right. Like they were like some good, you know, 15, 20 minute, like good matches. And I don't want to give anything away, but there's going to be some really good stuff in the X division coming up shortly. And you're the perfect like cornerstone of that right now. You aren't like, your style is not like any other X division current wrestler. You know, you look at like Ace Austin, okay, he does the flippy and all that kind of stuff, you know, great wrestler, great character and stuff, but you bring a mat based, like, you know, type of wrestling to the division. And I think everybody always asks, and I know they ask you, they ask me, they probably ask everybody that works for Impact, you know, what do you see the X division evolving to? I say it's evolving to kind of your style, Josh. Like it's, yeah, the mixture of like high flying, but that awesome, aggressive mat based type stuff. Would you think that that's kind of the evolution and maybe the next step of the X division?
Yeah, for sure. Cause like that style that you're talking about, that's basically what like people like Loki and Samoa Joe and all these other guys did. And like if you think of the WCW Cruiserweight division in like 96 to 98, it was like Benoit and Dean Malenko and all those guys, which had similar styles to like what I think I produce. And you know, it's a different take on, you know, I'm not going to say lightweight wrestling because I'm kind of a heavyweight, but like that style that's supposed to be like the tier below the heavyweight championship. So
yeah.
I have a very cupcake softball question to ask you, and this is something your style. First time I ever went to an Impact show, PD stops me before we walk in, almost like out of a movie. I'm going to do a little storytelling. Puts his hand on my chest and says, "Hey, before we walk in, when you shake people's hands, they're going to be a little limp-wristed. Do not squeeze their hands. You'll get heat. It will cause a problem." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Listen, just go with me. It's a sign of respect. It shows you'll take care of them when you go back." Now, you are a very aggressive and hard-nosed wrestler. So when you go into the locker room, are you one of those limp-wristed handshake guys? Or because Pete, you tell them the handshake. You guys don't know if you've
it's I know where your question is. It's old school. You know what I mean? And Josh knows, like, you know, when you probably broke in, everybody was doing the soft handshake.
It's like
right?
3 fingers. Like,
yeah, like
the dead fish.
Barely even yeah.
That's the
But
worst.
the purpose behind it is to show, say if I'm meeting Josh for the first time, you know, and I don't know this guy, and he gives me a crushing type of handshake, then I'm like, oh shit, this guy's not going to take care of me in the ring. I don't know if I want to work with him. You know, that kind of thing. It's like how you are, that handshake is the first, that's what it is.
Okay,
Dead now. Hold on, Dimitri. No, you hold on. That handshake is kind of dead right now. It is. Now we give, but you just never know if somebody's gonna be old school, do the soft handshake, or if we're doing professional handshakes now. It's kind of dead. And especially now with COVID, nobody's shaking hands. We're like fist pounding and stuff like that, which I love. But go ahead, Dimitri. What were you gonna say?
Oh my God! I mean, I just learned something new. So that's how you would communicate as far as Because shit, we do that same thing with baseball, except if you give a firm handshake and eye contact, that means, hey, we go down, we're soldiers, we're going together. We get that dead fish, it's like someone washed their hands and didn't dry it all the way and shook your hand. You know, that's how gross that feels. So that's how y'all would communicate. Ooh, that's weird.
And like I said, it's kind of dead. I don't know, Josh, maybe you could take over from here. Do you still give we call it a worker handshake, or are you just like the professional handshake? And then, what do you do? Because I know you were taught the other way, like the worker handshake. Everybody was, and
Yeah, I was taught that, but I think I did it for only like a year or two until I met Billy Gunn for the first time, and he shook my hand. He goes, "Oh, don't do that bullshit. Nobody does that shit anymore." and his hand like went around my arm, like it was like he's got a mitt on him too, and he just like I thought he broke my wrist, dude. Like, so ever since then, every time I shake anybody's hand, I just think of Billy Gunn. I'm just like, you're getting the real handshake, bro. I don't care.
All right, yeah, no, so it's that. But let's move on from the handshake and a little bit. I don't know if you like talking about this, like personal life and stuff like that. But I always find it interesting. We've had other, guests on the show that they're married or in a relationship with, another worker or somebody in the business. So I don't think you keep it a secret that, your wife is, was or is in the business or something. So my question is, do you guys like always talk wrestling, or do you check the wrestling at the door, or like, how does that work? Because I've never been in a relationship with somebody that's like into wrestling.
Me at the beginning, we didn't really talk wrestling, but like, I don't know, the last few years, like it's because she can't wrestle anymore. We had a baby 3 years ago, and so for 9 months before that, and 3 years, almost 4 years, she's not been involved with wrestling, and it was pretty much ever since then that like the network's on all the time at my house, or like tonight we watch Blood and Guts. Like it's just something we share together. And like she's a super fan of wrestling, and because she can't do it, she has to consume it somehow. So yeah, wrestling's on all the time in my house, and my 3-year-old is now obsessed with everything wrestling. And yeah, it's my life. And yeah, I'm a super fan still, even though I'm in the business, so I don't mind.
Okay.
All right, you called yourself a super fan right now. So dream matches. Who's the 3 guys that you would like to eventually wrestle within the next 3 or 4 years?
Shingo Takagi would be number 1 from New Japan. He's like my favorite active wrestler right now. I would say Kenny and Eddie Kingston for a random one.
Interesting.
Yes.
Who in your career have you wished you never wrestled? Besides Petey Williams.
Well, we've only wrestled once, right?
Yes, and it was my first fond experience with like a name wrestler. So yeah, I can put you over there.
First fond. I like how he slipped that.
But no, but yeah. Was it a soft handshake or a hard one? Weird, man. Just shake.
He stopped me at the door. He stopped me at the door and gave me a about
shit.
I mean, listen, I love wrestling because you guys are a bunch of freaks like me, because you wouldn't go on television in your underwear unless you had something wrong. So it's like, but like, you know what I mean? Come on, the handshake. But anyways, wrestler that you wish you'd never cross path with. Come on, give us some dirt.
Honky Tonk Man.
Have you ever worked Honky Tonk Man though?
Yeah, I took the shake, rattle, and fall in 2008.
Shake, rattle, and fall. You call it.
He would just grab you and turn and like watch you drop, and he wouldn't even go down to pin you. I was just like, yeah.
All right. I want to switch gears if I could jump in.
Look at that.
Oh, geez. You got it right handy. Good.
Yeah. He has a load of them. Every time someone mentions a wrestler, he pulls it out.
But so Josh, tell me about, did Johnny Devine legit, like he was your first trainer?
No, No.
Oh.
I joined his school a year into my wrestling career.
So who trained you, and then why'd you make the transition to with Johnny?
My first school was just like, it was a backyard school in Hamilton. It was just like a unit with a ring in it. And like kids would show up and we'd just be like, I think this is how the guy does the arm drag, when I watched the match. And like we just taught each other really. And then I was so like, I would go there every day. They gave me a key to the building. Like I would go every single day. Like I was completely obsessed. I dropped out of university for wrestling when I started doing this. So after a year, I was like, what do I do to make the next step? And Johnny opened a school in a boxing ring across the street from where his apartment was in Oakville. And he was just like, I'm taking tryouts. And I was like, oh, it won't hurt. Go for the tryout. I went for the tryout. Only 4 of us made the cut out of like 30. And I was just like, I guess I'm doing this now. You know what I mean? And it was just like the next step of me, like, how do I get better?
Okay, so when you were doing that, like how wrong were you with your backyard stuff? Because obviously when we all think we know how to wrestle when we start because we watch it on TV, like were you doing stuff on the wrong side and like everything totally wrong? Like was Johnny able to be like, hey man,
No, I could bump really well and everything was on like the proper side because, I studied like tape and we would go in and do it like step by step. And luckily I wrestled for a year on the indies and like there was some nice people on the independents that would like kind of steer me in the right direction, kind of like you would used to do in the territory days when you started to wrestle, right? So I was lucky that way. I showed up pretty like polished for a 1-year guy and he just retrained me with some stuff that he obviously much better than me.
all right.
Do you feel
And
like
beat me senseless.
do you feel like you've made it? And that's a loaded question. Answer it however you think it is. But where you are today, where you started, do you feel like you've made it in the wrestling industry? Are you happy? What is your next goal?
I am happy regardless of where I wrestle, as long as I can wrestle. Like if there were crowds in Canada on the independents and I was just wrestling there, I'd be happy. I was super happy doing that. But no, it does not feel like I've made it yet. After this last set of tapings and some other stuff, like I got pulled aside by some people in the locker room. And they were like, it really feels like your career is just like starting to get momentum. Like you're really starting to like pick up steam for the first time. And I was just like, yeah, I completely agree. So like, as far as making it, like my inner child would say I made it, but for what I want, my goals now that, I've evolved over my career, I definitely haven't made it, but I think I'm getting there.
Dimitri?
I was just thinking more along the lines of you have a son, correct?
2 sons.
2 sons. All right. I played with a lot of second generation ball players. And are you gonna be, as a father, you want your kids to follow in your footsteps, so to speak, if they want to do it, or you're gonna let them do whatever they want?
Yeah, I'll let them do whatever they want and support whatever they want. If I had to make bets right now, my 3-year-old is going to want to be a professional wrestler. So, it's my job to just prepare him for how actually difficult it is so he can actually sustain it.
Is he the walking weapon junior?
Ooh.
Yeah, he's got a little headgear and he's got a little championship belt that jumps all over the couch.
On the creative side, I mean, and most, in my experience, every professional wrestler, there's obviously some that aren't, but the ones who are successful like yourself, there's got to be a big creative side for you. I mean, do you see yourself 20 years from now still in the headgear, or is it like one of those things that's like, or do you start thinking about it now, or are you obviously kind of creating to see yourself in the future? And how does this character expand? How does he mature? Because that's the thing. It's like, I think that's where a lot of wrestlers kind of get in trouble, is they don't really know how to mature, and some of them really do. And then they stay successful for longer. Do you have ideas about how you're going to do that? Are you even thinking about that?
As far as like the look and losing the headgear, I haven't thought about it at all because I know it might inevitably happen, but when it does, it's going to be something super meaningful for it to happen for me. So the juice will be worth the squeeze, right? But the second part of your question, what was it? Sorry, I'm just mind gapping.
Oh, that's okay. The creative part of it. I mean, how are you seeing yourself mature?
Yeah, I think like maturing and stuff, from my experience, it all happens with like different opportunities and being put in different positions. So like my character is like I've done it in different promotions that aren't on television, but if the same thing happened in Impact, my character would mature just based on situationally of what feuds I'm in and like what happened. Like we have a giant independent promotion called Destiny Wrestling in Canada. It's probably the biggest promotion here, and my character evolved to being like the main event number one baby face because I had this cage match with Sammy Callahan where he hit me with the trash can and legit cut my head like wide open. It was like 27 stitches to shut this thing. And I bled more than anybody's ever bled in that ring, but I never stopped. And I moonsaulted off the cage bleeding like this. And, you know, the promoter's running around the cage screaming, stop the match, screaming at the ref. And I'm just like, no, we're fine. Like, you know what I mean? And thankfully the ref didn't. But like through that, the crowd got to see like my character as someone that perseveres. And it just took me to a different level. So I think same stuff can happen in Impact and situationally. That's just how I'll grow.
We got time for one more question apiece. And I want to go back to your family for a second. And I watched that amazing video your wife posted about the celebration when you came home. And it actually, not trying to be funny, but it brought like a tear to my eye to watch someone so proud of her husband coming home, accomplishing something. And the way your kid, and I even watched her watching your match. That was quite amazing. If you haven't had a chance, go on Twitter, and I'll have you tell her Twitter handle here in a second. But my question is, when you get the belt and you're holding on to it, you have that alone moment, whether it's in the hotel room, backstage, wherever you have that moment. Do you hug it? Do you cry? Did you sleep with it? Because it felt like, I'm not trying to be funny, but it felt like when you got that belt, it meant something. It wasn't like, all right, you're gonna hold the belt, have a good night, you go to Burger King, you throw it in a bag, and you move on. I really got the feeling from the way your family reacted from you that that belt meant something to you, and that you may have had a meaningful moment with it.
Yeah, I don't look at like championship belts. I've done everything in my power not to ever look at championship belts as like actual accomplishments in wrestling. But honestly, like the tag team title was a super huge accomplishment for me. And like that complete reign we had in Impact Wrestling meant a great deal to me. And winning the X Division, same thing. It's just like Lars was asking, like the evolution of me, like I was a tag team guy, and like what happens when a tag team ceases to exist? Somebody's the Marty and someone's the Shawn, and everybody's going to have that argument. Me winning the X Division championship might have just pushed me into being the Shawn. You know what I'm saying? Like that's me like staking my claim to singles gold, singles success in this greater wrestling landscape, not just Impact Wrestling. So it meant something to me in that way, because that the company has to trust me to put me in that position. Like I need to be good at my job to be put in that position. Like all this work I'm doing is paying off. Like that's the breath of fresh air. And my family, like that just, dude, like I don't remember ever crying before I had my son. And like the second he was born, it was just like commercials make me cry now. Like the second I got to the back, and my wife's like, check my stories or whatever. And I looked at the stories. I'm just like, I got to go to the back of the locker room now. I'm not going to cry in front of everybody over here. Like that, it meaning so much to her and like my two sons. Like it was just, that's what made it like all worthwhile.
So, to go back, I remember being at that. I think it was my birthday, actually. That match where you were bleeding all over the place, and they were trying to stop the match with Sammy and stuff. I remember watching them, and be like, "Man, that guy's got some color." You know what I mean? And I look at, okay, you wrestled Sammy. It was the main event. There's some like defining, I don't want to call them names, but at the time you're not under contract with Impact. You're like the Destiny Wrestling, like the main guy there. Now you're like one of the main guys in Impact. And then I look at like when you and Ethan as the North, like longest reigning tag team champions in Impact history, and then you go up against the Motor City Machine Guns. All right, so you look at that. I know you probably watched, like, what are their fake names? I was going to call them Josh and Patrick, but Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. You watch them, on Impact when you're, not younger, but like before you were with the company. Does that mean a lot to you when you're like, hey, they were the greatest tag team in Impact at one point, and now we are, and the two coming together? Was that like a really good moment for you when you guys did that? And tell me how, like, you guys like went about that, designing that match and all that kind of stuff.
It was a super huge thing, like for the exact reasons you said it. They were the hottest tag team in all of the world for like, and they didn't even tag that long. It didn't take them that long, but that's how popular they were, right? And then, like, I just remember they announced, we did the match or whatever at tapings right after the pay-per-view, and putting it together was just like, I you have to know Vin and Shelley, and I know them now, luckily enough, to know like the quirks of how they operate. So like anytime you get together with a tag team, like I've wrestled tag teams that are the most popular, successful tag team in the world, and they're butting heads the entire time trying to get a match together and just talking in the back. But like, just the way that Sabin and Shelley communicated, it's really weird. But like, I'm the in-ring wrestling portion, like I'm the creative force in the North, and then Ethan Page complements it with some like character creativity stuff, and like we go back and forth with that. But like for a lot of stuff, like I'm tossing out ideas left and right, and like Shelley's picking them mid-air and then just like putting a twist on them and making them better like instantly. So like the match came together easily, and like we weren't like intimidated, we weren't scared or anything. Like we knew we were good, we knew they were good, we knew this was going to be hot. But it was when I got home and it was supposed to air the next Tuesday, they tweeted out this tale of the tape, and it goes through like the Motor City Machine Guns accolades and then the North accolades, and like that's what it was just like, this is like the coolest thing that could be on TV right now for us, like as fans. So like that was the best part.
Yeah, no, that was cool. Yeah, great match too, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. So for my final question, you mentioned at the very beginning you had long, luscious blonde hair.
No, you didn't have long hair, did you? Didn't you have like just a little bit of hair?
I had like a bowl cut for a period of time, I guess, but no, it wasn't long and luscious.
All right. So was it hereditary for you to go bald? But I like the bald look. I'm just, just a personal question.
If I knew who to blame, or if I could blame somebody, I would find them and hurt them. But yeah, it was just, it was actually, I had my son and I broke my neck 6 months later. And within like 2 years, like the hair was just walking back. So I just chalked it up to stress, like physical.
The walking weapon had a walking back hairline.
But I wasn't one that was going to hang on to that shit for too long. So I just took it down to the wood.
You weren't going to pull a Sanjay Dutt? Jeez. He hung on that stuff way too long. So
yeah.
Well, I guess for my last question is now that we've got all these, these walls broken down, is there guys in the other promotions that maybe there's one or two guys that are out there that you're like, I really want to get my hands on? I know you mentioned a few earlier, but like, as far as like, you're the booker, who do you see yourself having the best match with and not in Impact?
Well, if I'm saying Forbidden Door, I'm going to guess the likely scenario is AEW, right?
Or AEW, New Japan.
Or, I mean, is ROH coming in? AAA? What, who's coming in next? Am I coming in? Am I coming in with a soft handshake? I never know.
From my point of fandom in wrestling and stuff that I watch and I enjoy, and from a business perspective of what I think would be best for my character to just like instantly become a household name with people watching it, it would be Shingo Takagi or Tomohiro Ishii from New Japan. Like I just think the style those guys have, it would mesh so well with me, and like it would just put me on that insane level that they're on.
Okay, well, with the beef with AEW, that's choosing sides and everything. Who in that company besides Chris Jericho?
Oh, Chris Jericho or Kenny, I guess I'll leave out. I would have to go with Pac.
Oh, dude, I'd love. Have you ever worked them before?
I don't want.
What's that?
No.
Oh, dude,
No,
I
haven't. No,
totally
it
forgot
would
about
be
you guys.
insane.
Have a hell of a match. And if I was the fantasy booker, before we wrap this up, you already mentioned Kenny, but it would definitely be Kenny. Like if Impact was my show and I was giving away the ending right now, it'd be you, option C, Bound for Glory, you and Kenny Omega, and that's how it would play out. I think you definitely would have everybody on the roster would have the best match with Kenny, just your style, his style. I would book that just because I want to see it. Anyways,
Wow.
I mean, I tweeted it.
if I was the booker. All right.
Wow. Well, listen.
Which he's not, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Maybe one day.
Wink. Listen.
But listen, just what about Christian Cage or somebody like that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on.
I forgot about Christian already.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's like I see you and him just burning the freaking house down. Like I just really, because you guys have similar styles, and just with his in ring and skill, I don't know. Just the thought. If I was the booker, you'd be all making more money. So, anyways, go ahead, Dennis.
But get this guy a job too, by the way.
Okay.
We've had some ups and downs. We've had some hard questions, some softball questions, but at the end, I feel like we've all left here being best friends with Josh Alexander. So if I had to name this podcast, it'd be Becoming Best Friends with Josh Alexander tonight. And Josh, thank you so much for coming on and letting us just nerd out and peppering you with such fandom nerdy questions, because I know Dimitri's not here, but I'm going to speak for Dimitri. You've made at least three of us. I won't include Petey because he sees you all the time, but you've made three of us three very happy wrestling nerds tonight.
And where can people find you, Josh? On social media? Stuff like
and your wife.
Twitter. Myself, it's Twitter and Instagram is walking_weapon, and my wife is JadeChung11. If you want to look up that video, and my wife also has a podcast as well, so you can check that out. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to do this after 6 months of you prying Petey, I guess, but it was super fun.
Your name comes up. I know we said this with QT Marshall, and it does when we have AEW talent on. They talk about QT Marshall, but when we have people on, when we just talk wrestling, you are one of those names that constantly comes up on this podcast as people we are fans of, and we are so thrilled to have you on. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Anytime.